What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of At Home with Mark. Today is season 9, episode 15. And I am not going to lie, ladies and gentlemen, I've been sleeping under 15 rocks that I have never heard Rick Lollar play guitar until this past Friday. And I'm sorry, Rick. I'm very sorry about that, man.
I accept your apology. It's totally okay. Yeah.
But I was telling you, dude, there's not often times when I hear something that just kicks me in the nuts and makes me stop for a second and be like, oh, wow. And your playing and your feel and your voice and everything is like so up my alley. And I was just so happy when I heard it, first and foremost, because it's new music in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you're like, yeah, let's hang out and talk. Like, thank you so much for doing this, man.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. And thanks for finding me on Josh Dion's Instagram.
Dude, I mean, that was just like, well, first of all, he's a badass too.
Yeah, he is.
So it's like seeing a power trio of that caliber on that stage. I was like, oh shit, I wish I could have been at that show. It seems like that was a lot of fun, man.
It was a blast, man. And that's the first time that trio has ever played together. We've all played together in a different setting, but we just kind of threw it together. Kevin booked the gig like a week before. And I was like, all right, this is going to smash because Kevin and Josh Dion, like you said, are heavy hitters. So we just, barely talked about what we were going to play, had a little Spotify playlist of some ideas and just kind of went out there and smashed.
Yeah, man.
We were just discovering, oh, you want to go there? Cool. Let's go there. All right.
Yeah, man.
Just start to finish, it was so fun. Yeah.
So did you just go up from it? Are you in Atlanta now?
I'm in New York now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So was it backline or was that your rig?
That was my guitar and pedals, but the amp belongs to the bitter end. It was just a stock deluxe reverb reissue, but there's something about one that they have there. They have like 2 or 3 different deluxes, and that particular one, every time I played through it, I'm like, this one's got some extra juju on it. I'm not sure what they did to it or if it's been beat to hell in a very pleasing way, but I'm always just like, yeah. And it's one of the few clubs in New York City where they do not tell you to turn down. You can rock out in there. It sounds amazing.
Really?
I mean, that club itself, I don't know how much you know about the Bitter End, but it's a legendary club where like Hendrix and Bob Dylan and Tom Waits and Joni Mitchell and George Carlin and all these amazing people, like Donny Hathaway Live was recorded there partially, like so much history in that room. And it's still the acoustics in that room. You can feel the intimacy, but you can play loud as shit in there too. Nobody cares. Excuse my language. I don't know.
No. You can cuss. But I mean that sound, just even from like someone's iPhone, like First of all, the iPhone does a pretty damn good job of like compressing and like making
it sound bad.
It's not bad at all, right? But your guitar tone was just so killer. And like, granted, your playing is great. But like palpably, like first thing I see is Kevin in that clip, and I'm hearing this awesome tone, and I'm like, "Where's the guitar player? Show the guitar player!" And that's when I saw you, and I was like, "Who's that dude?" And like it just totally fell head over heels for what was going on.
Right on.
But well, Rick, tell me, because I always ask everybody this, but like, what is your like earliest musical memory?
Oh man, it's got to be like being 3 years old and my dad had an acoustic guitar and I would just like sit in his lap and he would hand me the pick and just kind of help me strum and he would hold a G chord. So it would be that. And then just like hearing his music, the classic baby boomer dad jams, the Eagles, James Taylor, that kind of stuff. And then piano lessons early on, just hearing the radio, classic rock radio, and just the kind of stuff we all heard if you're of our generation, pre-internet, kind of the tail end of the pre-internet world,
Totally. So did you grow up on all that style of music, and like at what point did you diverge? Because there was a point for me when I was like exposed to what my parents had on in the car, right?
Yeah.
But then at what age did you like seek out other things?
Man, the guitar just kind of kept coming into my life. Like my dad had guitars. I would sneak into the room, pick them up. So after a while, I just kind of like ended up teaching myself some stuff. And he ended up being like, all right, let's get him some lessons. 10 years old, 11 years old, something like that. And really it was typical, like, guitar teacher working in the guitar shop on a Saturday. The dude had just graduated from Berkeley and he's like fusioned out. He had one of those Klein guitars. He was amazing. And he taught me the pentatonic scale and I was like, can we learn Pretty Fly for a White Guy? And he's like, sure, but we also have to learn The Thrill Is Gone or All on the Watchtower or Solo or Stevie Ray. And so it was, Hendrix, Stevie Ray, Allman Brothers. And then I just went full bore into being my hometown's child blues guitar prodigy.
There's nothing wrong with that, man.
No.
And this is Atlanta. This is like in
this was Tallahassee. I grew up in Tallahassee, Florida, North Florida. Which is I'm very proud to be from there. It's kind of a slept on region of the country. It's very swampy. It's not like South Florida, Miami vibes. It's like, live oak trees, Spanish moss hanging down, alligators in the backyard. Like it's kind of swampy and mysterious kind of feeling. And, Derek Trucks is from down the road in Jacksonville. The Allman Brothers are from Jacksonville, Daytona area. So it's all that kind of North Florida swampy blues atmosphere. And Tallahassee happens to did have a one-room juke joint, cinder block, like legit Chitlin Circuit blues club, where like Hubert Sumlin would come through, Bob Margolin, like all the heavy, real blues dudes would come through, and I got to see all them at a very young age. So that was it. And there's just even to this day, a very strong like blues culture in Tallahassee, and a lot of great musicians have come out of there. And so yeah, this was in Tallahassee. This is early 2000s.
Okay.
Guitar teacher is like taking me to the blues jam, and I'm sitting in on further on up the road, and shredding and playing Voodoo Child and stuff, and just the classic child blues guitar prodigy vibe.
Nice. Is Josh Smith from there too? Like, isn't Josh or Joe Bonamassa? They're both from like around that area, right?
I want to say Joe Bonamassa is from upstate New York, but Josh Smith, I believe he's from like Tampa or Orlando, somewhere central Florida. But really, the whole state of Florida has this blues thing going on. Like there was a circuit of places you could play all around the state, and blues lovers that would come out. And I mean, it's still kind of that way. It's very cool.
Man, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It's weird how like if you go to different regions of the United States, like first of all, our country is so diverse in terms of like topology, and like going to like the Southwest is so different than the Northeast kind of thing.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
But it's interesting because they all have like their little pockets of what is hip, like musically in those towns. And I would never think of Florida as like the blues capital of the United States, but it seems like just based on you and the other people who have come out of there, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great scene, and there's still people there that maybe aren't making headlines out in the rest of the world, but like I have friends that I grew up playing in garages with that are like absolutely crushing it and should get more recognition, So I try to just trumpet my hometown wherever I can.
Yeah, man, as you should. So tell me a little bit about like kind of on the kind of tail end of my last question.
Yeah.
Thinking about like switching and kind of finding your own path.
Yeah.
Like for me, and you could tell me like for you, like how this changed. But for me, like the first time I heard like somebody like John Scofield, the first time I heard a go-go, I was like, oh, wow. Like after being into the Dead and Fish and all these jam bands that I kind of grew up, because my older brother always listened to all that stuff. But I heard him listening to a go-go, and that made me like totally change. And that changed the trajectory of the rest of my career.
Right.
So do you have a moment like that?
I do. I have several. One, I mean, that record in particular is one of the ones that kind of knocked me sideways, certainly. But probably earlier than that, maybe I'm 13 years old. I'm big into Derek Trucks. This is like year 2000. It's before he's like completely taken over the world. But in Florida, he was already a legend. He's from Jacksonville. And I'm listening to his record Out of the Madness. And there's a song on there called Young Funk, which is a fusion-y funk song, instrumental. And I'm like, whoa, I'm coming from like blues, and I'm hearing what are those extra notes they're doing. And then there's this absolutely ripping single note solo, some fast playing, some chromaticism. And I'm like, I didn't know Derek could play like that. And I didn't look in the liner notes yet. I'm just like, Derek is shredding my face off. I thought he just played slide. And then I look in the liner notes and I see Jimmy Herring. Yeah. I'm like, oh, who is Jimmy Herring? And, this is not like YouTube is not around at this point. So I couldn't just like look him up. And it was just a slow process of figuring out, okay, Jimmy Herring is a real guy. He played with Colonel Bruce Hampton in the Aquarium Rescue Unit with O'Teal, and, figuring out, okay, well, I want to play like that. How do I do that? How did he do that? And just learning about him and learning about Derek, and they were always name dropping Miles and Wayne Shorter and just the jazz canon. I followed that rabbit hole, and I ended up actually becoming a jazz musician. I didn't mean to. I was just like, like I was just falling towards wanting to sound like Jimmy Herring and John Scofield. But I ended up actually just like learning about the whole history of jazz and going to school at Florida State College of Music and majoring in jazz. And like I had my 4-year period of being like an archtop bebop, jazz guitar player. And then, but that was kind of like a side swerve to try and get back to like, okay, how do I now incorporate this information into my blues upbringing, and how do I get to sound like Jimmy Herring one day if I try really hard,
Right.
or 1% of Jimmy Herring. That was kind of my goal. But
Dude, that Jazz is Dead record, that the first time I heard that, was it Laughing Water maybe was the name of the record, but Row Jimmy, like with him and Derek on that.
Oh yeah.
I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, how is this person playing like this? I don't understand. First of all, the sound that he gets with his hands is so definitive. There's no denying the fact, like how now that you have kind of worked with him and got to watch him night after night, things like that, what do you notice? Like what makes Jimmy Herring, do you think?
Well, he practices his ass off to this day. Like he'll stay up all night and chain smoke and just eat a bowl of cereal at 2 a.m. and just, he's still shedding every day. Like, or you get to the venue, it's before sound check, and he's walking around with the guitar unplugged, just walking around the venue trying out new stuff. Hey, have you checked this out? And I just, for me as a fan of his, before I ever met him, he's literally one of my guitar heroes, and I never imagined that I get to work with him. But when I did, he was as interested in what I was doing as I was in what he was doing, and he's so humble. I'm like, there's nothing that I know that you can't do a million times better than me. But, he didn't feel that way. He's genuinely interested in learning and just adding that to what he does and getting a little piece of what you're doing. So he's curious. He's still trying to get better. He still doesn't think he's as amazing as he is. He's like, man, Steve Morse and John McLaughlin, they're just the best. And I'm like, I know, but they would say you're up there, Jimmy. You're pretty good. So that's just very validating that a dude like that, it really is all about the music. It really is. He is who you want him to be. There's no ego. It's all music. It's all love. And, I'm like, that's my role model. That's it.
I love hearing stories like that. That's amazing. Yeah. So I guess you're in the same path then. Like you're forever a student of music then.
I mean, it's turned out that way. I don't know. I've been a working professional musician I'm coming up on 40. I've been, I'm not the child blues guitar prodigy anymore. And there was a time when I feel like my love for music was just completely pure. And there is the element of like, okay, it's also my job, and I've been doing this and working at it, and it's the only way I've made a living. So that does, at a certain time, there's like a compartment in my brain where sometimes I have to play some gigs that, I'm getting paid for, and it's not necessarily what I would choose to play. So there is that kind of element there that wasn't always there, the doing it as a job aspect. But certainly music itself is endless. It is endless. And I'm still, there's so much I don't know. The more I learn, the more my ears develop, the more my taste develops. I hear all this stuff, and then it reflects off of me. And that's a thing too. So the student mentality versus going into your own, don't want to sound pretentious here, your own artistry, which is really just you sounding the most like yourself possible. It's having a healthy love for everything that you love, but also okay, I'm not going to be beholden to that. I'm going to try and destroy that. Actually, I'm going to question my love of that. I'm going to put myself in an uncomfortable situation and see what comes out of that, So that's been a journey that is a lifelong thing. And I hope I stay on that path as long as I get to do this,
Yeah, man.
It keeps getting more interesting and salty over the years,
Salty's a great adjective. Yeah. So what's firing you up right now, with the instrument? What is making you want to pick it up right now?
Well, playing with guys like Kevin and Josh Dion, and playing with Jamison Ross, and the guys that I get to play with that inspire me. I'm more thinking about the music itself and interacting with them, less about the instrument itself. I love the guitar, but I don't think I've ever like worshipped the guitar as an object unto itself. It's kind of just the thing I have that I'm the best at, that I know I have a facility at, that I can use to express myself. And I'm really interested in just using that to get myself into unexpected places. So that's what fires me up. It's not really like the instrument itself. It's just, how can I use this paintbrush? Like, what have I not done? What makes me a little uncomfortable and scared, or makes me laugh, or gives me some reaction? So I say all this because I'm in the midst of making a record right now.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I've been working on it for a few years, and I'm sitting here in my studio in Harlem. It's complete chaos right now because I'm a procrastinator, and the way I make records is I book studio time before things are written completely, and then I put money on the line, and I put people's schedules on the line, and I give myself a hard deadline and make it impossible for myself not to produce something. So I'm in this. I have 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today, I'm going into the studio to finish my record. Hopefully. And so I'm like in songwriting mode, and I'm in like, let's get this done frenzy at the
Dude,
moment. But
kudos to you, man. That is ballsy, man.
yeah, it's you're gambling, with money and time, but it's just like I'm in high school all over again. Like the project is due in 6 weeks, and you just don't care about it until the night before, and then you slam
Right?
dunk it, hopefully. But
Oh man, who
yeah.
played on it? Who played on the record?
It's Kevin Scott and Jamison Ross. We've done a few sessions, live band as a trio. Uh, Went down to Bogalusa, Louisiana, this incredible studio called Studio in the Country. Amazing, like 1970s era custom built studio with all the Neve, everything you want. And then we did another session up here in Brooklyn at Figure 8 Studios in the spring. So I have basic tracks, and I'm at the point now of like, okay, I think I'm going to delete all the guitar I've already played on it and do all new. Like, I'm going to do the real parts now, and,
Right.
And then sing it, of course. But, and some of the songs, like, even at this moment, they don't have all the words. They don't have all the melody. It's like, okay, they can kind of go either way at the moment. But it's all going to get done. I have faith in my ability to procrastinate, unfortunately.
Do you like the spontaneity of that? Like in terms of like threading that last needle at the very end, that last stitch? Like, do you kind of like that? Because does it keep it fresh for you?
Yeah, I need that, I think, because so much of my career has been about live music and live performance. I've done a lot of stuff in the studio too, but I'm not like a Nashville session dude, and that's what I do. So record making is a different mindset for me, and I do need those triggers that kind of activate my, okay, I'm doing a performance now. I'm not just like playing guitar into my computer. I'm like performing a piece of music. So yeah, having a little bit left unwritten at the end of the game, it kind of activates my improvisation, and like, okay, coming from a jazz background, it's like, you make a record in a day, you do 10 songs in a day, you do every song maybe twice to have an insurance policy, and that's it, So
Yeah.
that's
Man.
kind of where I'm coming out with being in the studio. But at the same time, this record is like more of a studio creation than anything I've done. So it'll be
Oh,
somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
okay. Like in what way? Like you kind of are crafting and putting things together a little bit more thoughtfully, or?
Yeah, it's not just like a live band. I mean, there is a live band at the core of it, but a lot of it is more crafted and sculpted and shaped uh, after the fact. And I'm trying to get to something I haven't gotten to yet. And I'm like, I feel like I've had this thing in my back pocket for like the last 2 or 3 years, and nobody's heard me do it. And I just like, I have to get it out so everybody can like know what I actually want to be doing.
Hell yeah, dude. That's
Yeah.
awesome. When's that
Yeah.
going to come out? In 2025, you think? Or
I certainly hope so. I'm going to see what avenues are available to me to get it out, because after doing, anybody that makes a record, you put so much time into it. You really want people to hear it. You want to put as much effort into getting it out there as much as one can in the current atmosphere. You know, I just want to push myself hard and like get it out, so anybody in my little realm of influence can know what I'm up to. But
Yeah, it's
yeah,
great. And it's just like so different these days too, man, with
yeah.
like because vinyl is expensive to print and press and
Hmm.
stuff. It's just that whole game because like that's what you have to sell these days. No one's well, I don't know, man. Actually, tapes and CDs are kind of like starting to come back in a little
Yeah,
weird way. It's kind of strange.
I'm into it. I'm into physical media of all kinds. Let's do it.
Yeah, me too, man. But it's like astonishing. I think people don't realize how expensive it is for artists, like especially independent artists, to print vinyl.
It's
So,
crazy, man. It's crazy, but this is what we love to do. So
it's
if you
true.
want if you want to experience your music that way, it's like you got to do it. You got to, even if you have to foot the bill or raise money some kind of way to do it
Yeah.
on your own. Can't just get signed to Columbia Records and like let them do all that stuff now.
Right. Yeah.
Some people get to do that, but
Right.
yeah.
Like glutton for punishment as we all are.
Yeah, right.
So talk to me a little bit about so we kind of covered so what year did you start playing with Jimmy?
2019 is when that's the only year we've actually toured. I think he called me a year before that, like 2018.
Okay.
And it was because of that King Baby record that you brought up. I think it was before we started streaming, but yeah,
That's
that's
what
what
I
led
was
to that.
perfect segue. So
Yeah.
that's what I wanted to talk about. So when you guys put that record out, that was 2017, right?
Hmm.
First and foremost, I'm gonna say this. I told Rick this beforehand, but like, man, it's like a 2017 record that you feel like the meters just walked in and just put out a fucking banging new record. Because it is, I highly recommend to anybody that doesn't know the Big Galoot King Baby, please go listen to that record. It is absolutely phenomenal. Like every single track will destroy you. Um, and I'm just curious, like it's sonically, it sounds amazing. Obviously, like there's so many little nuanced things. Like I was listening to it in headphones too. While I was like doing
Hmm.
the dishes. Um, and there's so many things that I think you enjoy it more and more the more you listen to it. It's like one of those
Cool.
movies that you watch over and over and over again. You find little things.
That's awesome.
But like, how did you guys track that? Did you track all basics live? Did you do the guitar live? Did you overdub it? Like, tell me a little bit about the process.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically all live. We overdubbed a couple things, but we were recording in a small, very cool studio in Atlanta in Little Five Points, with our friend Spencer Garn. The name of the studio has changed a couple times, so I don't want to say the wrong thing, but Spencer Garn, Little Five Points, behind our favorite Mexican dive bar, El Mir. And so we're just like hanging out at El Mir, have a shot of tequila and a burrito, and then go back in the studio.
Nice.
And yeah, it's a small thing. Like we're in the room with the drums, there's bleed, we embrace the bleed. I'm playing through just like a small combo amp, a car Rambler, in the room live with everything. Slocum, Matt Slocum, amazing keyboard player, also plays with Jimmy Herring, and many others. He is in the room with, I think he had a Rhodes or a Whirly, his clavinet going through an amp, like with his special preamp that just makes it scream so beautifully, and a B3. And I think that Leslie was like in the bathroom or something. And,
Nice.
but yeah, we were just like doing it live, and we got really great vibey basic tracks, and I overdubbed vocals. We had horns on a couple of tracks, and then we just dumped all that off with Jason Kingsland, who was our engineer, and he's an amazing engineer, really creative, musical engineer. He's every effect he hears to use is to further the music or to give it some kind of vibe. It's not just like gear or plugins for their own sake. It's he was trying to give us a cohesive, cool aesthetic, and he really imparted a lot of what you hear, because the basic tracks did not have effects. They were not like saturated or juiced up in any way, and he really did a lot of that. Obviously we were mixing with him and consulting back and forth, but yeah, that's the core of it is still that live band, everybody playing together. Solos are all live except maybe one I cheated on, but yeah, for the most part it's like a performance. But it took place, I think we did 4 different sessions over the course of a year, and we would just some of the songs we didn't have that day, like the song Check the Hand, that came because we're just warming up and getting sounds, and Rodaba, the drummer, started playing that beat, and I was like, that's sick. And I just naturally played that riff that ended up becoming the main riff, like off the top of my head. And then Kevin and Matt jump in and then we just start building it from there. And I like just the lyrics aren't like Bob Dylan on that one, so I just kind of like
Right.
just came up with it in the moment, and we wrote and arranged that whole tune in like maybe an hour, and that was it. Yeah.
Dude, yeah, that song is like hella hip too, because there's like a lot of like cool anticipations and stuff in that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, all right. So let's talk a little bit about that because that's nuts. So you guys go in that day with the thought of recording something else, and then that comes out.
Yeah, I think we maybe have one or two other ideas, but that was purely just an accident.
What the hell, dude?
Yeah,
That's
but it's
crazy.
this group of guys, like we're all really good friends. We've all known each other and played together for many years, and we were just having a ball, like, and just giving each other shit, and it's just
Yeah.
that atmosphere is just in there, and it's half of the record is like a joke, an inside joke to us. It's like half of my lyrics are like joking lyrics about Kevin, and just like little, like the big Galoo is what his mom calls him. So I just I'm just literally stealing stuff from our friendships and putting it in there, to get
Oh,
the
that's
songs.
great.
Yeah.
Well, you know what's interesting about that specific tune too is like check the hand is that I feel like listening to that the first time I heard it, the first time through I listened on the record, I felt like first of all the groove is so locked, like between you and the drummer in the beginning there, like it's so locked.
Hmm.
But like I never in a million years I thought you guys would have been gigging that tune for a year before you recorded it. So
Nah. Yeah.
it comes across as very joyful and jovial, and like
Hmm.
maybe that is like the essence of that tune is like it's a spontaneous kind of eruption that happened.
Yeah.
But it's palpable, you can feel it. Like,
Totally. Yeah. We were having fun. I mean, there's no substituting that. If you get a bunch of guys that love to play together and are just having so much fun, that's what happens. It's like you can't not do that. So I'm
yeah.
very proud of it, just as a document of those guys and us being together in that place and that time. And it still sounds good to me. And it's hard to hear oneself on a recording sometimes, but that one I'm just like, yeah, that one still slaps pretty good.
Oh, dude, it's
Yeah.
so is that available on vinyl anywhere, actually?
I don't think we ever pressed vinyl.
Okay. I would buy the
Yeah.
hell out of that, dude.
But if
Um,
anybody wants to lobby Shovik Duta at Abstract Logics Records to do a vinyl pressing, be my guest, please.
I'll
Yeah.
send them a message tomorrow.
Please do.
Um,
Please do.
Dude, yeah, I mean, it's because that whole record does come off that way. It's like it just feels like a really fun record, and I don't say that in a demeaning way. I say that in like music has to be fun. It has to
Yeah.
be. It has to have a vibe. Like I always listen to music coming from my guitar player shoes. Like I always listen to music first and foremost. Believe it or not, I listen to the drummer first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Drums always like if the groove isn't hitting me immediately,
Mhm.
I lose interest quickly. And there's 0% of that on that record. Like 0%. Like there's the whole way through. Once you understand, like, okay, this rhythm section is dialed A. Like I don't really need to worry about anything else. I'm already in love with this. So anything else that can happen on top of this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
That's what that record is to me. And I've only listened to it twice all the way through since we spoke on Friday or whatever that was.
Right on.
So, but it's so good. And like, so is the new stuff you're doing, is it kind of still in that kind of funk blues fusion type thing? Or are you doing something totally different?
There's some of that. I have to say what I'm doing is more on the singer-songwriter, ethereal, somewhat dark spectrum, but
Okay.
there's definitely still like moments of funky bluesy rocking out, shredding, funny haha stuff on there. But
Mhm.
on the whole, it's more of yeah, I hesitate to like make any comparisons to other artists, but it's my version, a southern, indie-ish, songwriter blues influence thing. I hate using words to describe music, but
I know,
yeah.
I get it. No, I'm here for it, man. I'm excited to hear that because I think it's cool to have like this dichotomy of like, you can separate, you can be
Yeah.
you can be Two-Face, you can do whatever you want to do, be a chameleon and adapt and write in new ways. And I mean, Charlie Hunter is a good example of that.
He's amazing. Yeah, whatever he does is I'm down,
Just reinvents himself every friggin' record. And
Yeah.
like, we're all here to lap it up and like, be like, not because we're like lap dogs. We're like, hey, this is hip too.
No, he's killing, and he's got a singular voice, and it's him, and his taste is killing. And so whatever style he decides to play, whatever song he chooses to play, I'm down. Like he's the artiste of what he does. There's nobody else that does that, you know. And many of my favorite artists, that's the same thing. Just like take me on a journey. And in fact, I don't want to see somebody get in a rut and like repeat themselves too much. I mean, there is too much of a good thing to me. You know, like surprise me, do some new stuff, scare yourself, you know, and get to something new. And if the risk is that you make a stinker every couple albums, go for it. I'd rather be repulsed by music than just like kind of feel okay about it. You know, I'd rather be like, this sucks. Like I would rather be like, yeah, I hate this.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
I get
fine.
it.
Yeah.
And you can be in love with a band and like,
Yeah,
they could be 10 records deep and they put out something and you're like, ugh, not my fave.
yeah, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It happens to us all. But
Yeah. Well, let me ask you. So since you just did this gig with Kevin and Josh, and since both those guys have been a rhythm section with my absolute favorite guitar player of all time, Wayne Krantz. What's your experience with Wayne? And like, because I can see it come out a little in you. And I don't know if you were doing that to kind of play into what their vibe was going, the couple of those jams, but like, tell me your thoughts on Wayne. I'm very curious.
Well, I love Wayne. He's one of my heroes, absolutely. And another guy with a completely unique, singular voice, not just on the instrument, but as a creator, the whole world of music and the concept behind the way he plays with a trio. Kevin and Josh being one of the formations of that trio, an incredible one. But he's had so many over the years. He basically invented a way to improvise using those colors, like the color of a distorted Strat through a Marshall, and bashing drums, but like being able to turn on a dime, like the most high level jazz trio. You know, the rhythmic concepts behind that, of just being able to like do a little nod to the drummer and all of a sudden you're in a different tempo, different time signature, and everybody locks in by like the second 16th note. And
Right.
boom, we're just in a new place right now. That's the kind of stuff that scares me. That's the stuff that makes me excited about music. And Wayne does that at the highest possible level. I heard him for the first time probably when I got to college. You know, 2 Drink Minimum, Long to Be Loose, like all of the jams from that era, Greenwich Mean, and it blew my mind. I'm like, this is a Strat, but what the hell is going on? That's only 3 people. There's not another guitar player. And I got the book, like the Improviser's OS, and which is just, any of you who haven't seen it, it's just like a bunch of numbers. It's like every possible configuration of the 12 notes of the chromatic scale. I'm like, okay, what do I do with this? This is mysterious, but it's taken me somewhere. So I just kind of slowly absorbed his music over time. I never really like sat down and tried to learn how to play like Wayne Krantz. I more just kind of listened to him over the years, and it became a part of, you know, just whatever soup of influences I have. But certainly a huge one. And when the King Baby record came out in 2017, we actually did a short co-bill tour with Wayne Krantz trio.
Oh, wow.
And it was like, yeah, getting to hear Wayne every night. And we were playing like venues down south, and the ticket sales were not good. Like we were like as amazing. Wayne is like a goat, you know, but we just didn't have ticket sales for that tour, and it was a shame. But I got to hear Wayne Krantz very up close and personal for several nights, and he's the dude. He's amazing.
Yeah. Did you pick up anything from him in terms of like harmonic voicing stuff? Because that's the thing I love about Wayne so much, is like the counterpoint that he employs with that instrument, and like his knowledge of harmony, and even like using like rhythm more as a motif than instead of melody as a motif. Like what did you pick up from him?
I mean, just what you said, exploiting surprise, elements of surprise, doing things to get away from your patterns, away from your conventional things. And when you improvise like that, it's really a conversation. It's really not regurgitating. You're listening. You're getting input from the other musicians at the same time you're giving output, and then they're feeding off of you. And it's this virtuous cycle where, oh, Josh Dion heard me play that rhythm and he picked up on that. And then Kevin did that because he did that. And now I'm going to do something different than both of those because I just did that. And then they're going to, you know, it's like this weird, and it's not happening consciously at the time. You're just listening and
Yeah.
you're getting out of your own way, ideally, and just surrendering and just allowing yourself to just be in it. And like, so when we're playing that way, a lot of the time I'm not thinking. I'm thinking about um, telling a story or just loosely having, okay, what's the thread right now? And let me just follow it and see where it goes. Oh, and then the murderer turns a left and hides behind the car. And like, I'm just like
Yeah.
watching and finding out like anybody else. But the main thing is the story. And it's not, okay, let me insert this thing that I learned from Wayne or like, this specific voicing I want to use. It's more just like contrast. Okay, how can I shed light on what's going on over there? How can I, set up a theme over here and then play off of that theme? Or like you said, counterpoint. Um, can I play a long, slow, melodic line in the top register and then play something rhythmic and dark and antithetical to that other idea underneath it? And can I keep those two threads going at the same time? And then can I also incorporate what Kevin's doing or some other rhythmic element? So but you're doing all that at a subconscious level at like hyper speed. So it's things you can analyze after the fact. But not to be thought about in the moment, hopefully, when you're improvising.
Yeah. I think that, like, I love what you said about surrendering.
Mhm.
I feel like that is it's like you were saying, is like not to try to sound like Wayne, but like
Yeah.
the spirit of different.
Mhm.
I think is the thing that I love about Wayne. It's like the unabashed abandonment, like the recklessness, the danger, that like
Yeah.
living on the edge of the knife kind of thing.
Mhm.
Man, I saw, dude, when I was going to Berkeley, I was they came through Boston, they came through Somerville. And I think it was Cliff Allman and Wayne, and I can't remember. I don't think Tim was there. It might have been, I don't think it was Anthony Jackson either. Who was playing bass that night? I can't remember. But dude, it was kind of fresh off the Krantz Carlock Lefebvre record.
Mhm.
And they played Rushdie, and I would never forget this. At the end, because I went out to interview Wayne before, like after their sound check for Berkeley.
Mhm.
And at the end of that song, I was like out of breath. And that I was like already a huge fan, but I'd never seen him live.
Yeah.
I never got a chance to see him in the 55 bar. I wish.
Me either.
Oh,
Me
God.
either.
Can you imagine, dude? Oh.
That's like one of the reasons I wanted to move to New York was like, I'm going to go to the 55 bar every night. I'm going to see
Right?
Wayne Krantz all the time. And it closed during the pandemic, like right before I got here. So
Sucks, dude. But I just remember being out of breath, and I'm like, oh my God, like that's never happened to me before.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I've never
you're in it. You're physically involved in the music when it's that good, for sure.
yeah, dude,
Yeah.
it's crazy. And then it's funny, my wife is she's not a musician. She's not super into that stuff. In fact, she always kind of feels like Wayne is like a swarm of bees, so it's too
Mhm.
much for her.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
too much
I
for a
get
lot of people, let's be real.
I mean, that ring mod does have some bumblebee sounds in there.
Yeah. There's some PTSD from little kids getting chased from a hive, but like
Yeah.
it like for her, when she took me to see them in Virginia, they came through Jam and Java like a couple years ago.
That's a cool place too, yeah.
Yeah, it is. So she got me tickets for my birthday, but the show was like in December or something. So we went, and she was like, I don't understand what was going on, but like that was the most intense musicianship I think I've ever witnessed on a stage.
Mhm.
And it's not even like Wayne and the rest of those guys are like just spinning 16th notes for like 5 minutes straight. But
Yeah.
like the fact that she could tell that like the communication was above and beyond anything she's ever seen before.
Mhm.
That is kind of like, I think, what we should take from that, right? It's like learning how to do that with like other musicians on a stage.
Absolutely.
So
That's it. They're all surrendering and they're coming to the table with their own unique sounds and they're finding a way to just have a conversation and not force a conversation, but just literally acknowledge, oh, that's what you think. Wow. Like you're having just an interaction, a human interaction. And it's so exciting. It's so exciting.
yeah. Well, dude, I mean, I can't wait. You got to come through Baltimore, or I got to come up to see you in New York. Like, I really got to see you live, because what you do on the instrument is, I feel like maybe what hit me the most, Rick, is like, I do feel like you have your own fingerprint on the instrument. I very much so appreciate any guitarist that has that, obviously, but also like the feel and the time. Like your time is really good.
Mm.
Um, and that's something that a lot of guitar players don't pay attention to. I don't work on, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But that's very important to me. So like when I see somebody like you doing that and the touch and the time, that interaction between those two things, man, it's just like where does that come from for you?
Oh man, it's so important. Feel, like the feel word is so important to me. Like the way I play, I want there to be, I want it to be lyrical like a singer. I want it to be dramatic. I want each note to be articulated very like on purpose, intentionally, to get a melody to speak and to emulate the human voice or to emulate a drum or some other thing. But like, I want it to be clear. The feel, like, where are you in relation to the metronomic time? Because you're not playing on top of the beat like a computer all the time. I tend to drag, and I have a top out speed where I can get a few 16th notes off at a certain tempo, but then I just crap out. Like I don't have the shred metal chops at all, or even the Jimmy chops who, like, how does he do that? I
You're
wish
pretty
I could do it.
fast, man. I saw some clips. You're pretty fast.
I have some bursts of speed, but then I just quickly, I'm like, oh boy, I gotta slow down.
Training
um,
wheels, training wheels.
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of good because that's just like a hiccup in the way that I play. And I know that there's something about my right hand. Like if I were to find it and correct it, maybe I could like learn one of those economy picking techniques or something. But I just like, nope, that's not for me. There's Cecil Alexander. You do that. You're an amazing, perfect bebop player. And you can just like get all this beautiful language out without stopping ever. But I'm a little more broken sounding than that. But yeah, time, touch, I got to go back to the 5 T's that were instilled in me by Colonel Bruce Hampton, who's, if anybody out there doesn't know Colonel Bruce, he's the mentor to Jimmy, to O'Teal, to Derek Trucks, to Trey, Dave Matthews, Widespread Panic, like all the jam band dudes, like revered him as our guru. And I got to play with him for a couple of years in Atlanta, and it was just a hugely pivotal thing in my life. And he would always talk about the 5 T's: taste, time, tone, touch, and the 5th one that people don't normally talk about: threat of vomit.
Explain that, please.
Threat of vomit. This is actually the most important one. And it relates to another saying Bruce had, which is put the devil in the room. Put the devil in the room. And he had the ability to do this. He didn't do it every night, but some nights he would just play some note and you have no idea how he got that scary banshee witch-like sound to come out of the guitar, and it just stabbed you like a lightning bolt in the chest. He knew how to put the devil in the room and to use threat of vomit. And threat of vomit is, am I scared? Is it about to fall off the rails, but it's not? Is it just making me cry or laugh or have some extreme out of body feeling? Does it just give you a feeling of like aliveness? And that's so important because you can create music with the other 4 T's that's like amazing, but it's missing that thing. And that thing is when you hear Howlin' Wolf say smokestack lightning and you just, you lose your mind. That's the threat of vomit. And that, I think the world needs more threat of vomit. That's,
yeah, man.
Make me scared, make me repulsed, make me laugh. Like, just give me an experience, but don't just make it okay. Like, I'm really tired of, and no shade on anybody. We're all out here. It's hard to be a musician, but I've heard a lot of like very competent, middling stuff because people aren't going into their own voices as much as they could. And they're chasing something, which we all are. We all get caught up in that. But the more people can go into what they can bring and to the inefficiencies in their playing and to the hiccups and to the rough edges, like lean into that and make yourself vulnerable that way. It takes courage to do that, to not sound good, but do it with intent and do it with emotional authority. That's the threat of vomit. And it's a silly way to say it, but it's actually a pretty deep, concept that informs a lot of the music, that means the most to me.
No, I mean, it's
Yeah.
emotionally and visually
Yeah.
evoking, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, it really is.
Yeah.
So, do you have a story of being on stage, and can you remember a moment where you and the rest of the band reacted to something he was doing that you were like, "Oh shit, where's this gonna go?" And, like, "We really gotta pay attention what's happening right now?"
Oh god, yeah. So many. I'm thinking right now, we were playing Smith's Old Bar in Atlanta one night. And, Bruce was getting up there in age by the time I played with him. And if he had a big meal right before the show, he might be a little sleepy. He'd sit up there on his stool. And
Yeah.
it's just kind of like, all right, we're going to jam on this one for, like, you got it.
Mhm.
Me being the guitar player, singer dude in the band, it was like, all right, Bruce is just over there kind of like guarding everything. But it's really me running the ship right now. And that's what he wants. He's like mentoring me. That's how he's doing it. Make something happen, put the devil in the room. And we're playing Smiths, and I'm thinking, okay, Bruce is just kind of letting me, he's giving me enough rope to hang myself here. I'm just kind of jamming and soloing. I don't really know where to go. I'm running out of ideas. And we just kind of simmer back to a groove, and we look to Bruce. We're like, what's going on? And he just kind of wakes up all of a sudden, and he gets up off the stool. He hits this one note with just wicked vibrato and so much distortion. He's playing like the crappiest little Fender solid state, like multi effects unit in the amp, like the worst sounding amp possible. And just cranked all the effects up, and it's feeding back, and it sounds like shit, but it sounds so amazing. And
Right?
just the rest of the band, we're just like, we're, I think we all got down on the floor. Sometimes we did do that. We would like lay on our backs on the stage, play, just like laying on the floor. We would one time somebody brought a bunch of brooms to the gig, and Bruce is like, "You gotta sweep," and we just started sweeping. We were
Oh,
insane, but that was all a part of like his ethos, which is threat of vomit, put the devil in the room, and also take what you do seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. And how can you take
yeah.
yourself seriously when you're sweeping a broom on a stage in a dive bar? Like you can't. So just getting us out of our own way, so that we could surrender to the music and achieve something together.
Man, there's something too that like sweeping the stage, like there's something that just kind of like relaxes you and takes you off guard too.
Yeah.
And I feel like his thing was like such an art piece,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a reason like that he is like the Mount Rushmore of the jam band universe,
Yeah.
for the risks that man took and for the art that he could create spontaneously or whatever,
Yeah.
or premeditated, but like still like, no one else was doing that. Like you look back at and you listen to old Fish shows and stuff and like the whole
Mm-hmm.
dude of life thing and the weirdness of early Fish and stuff. I'm like, that's all stemming from him. It's
Yeah.
all stemming from him. So
He was encouraging that, and that's the gift he gave all of us, and all of us who knew him, we still talk about him like all the time.
oh
It's
sure.
so many stories, and just he's still very, very present in all of our lives. I feel very lucky that I got to like be there for a little window of time with him. It was really
Yeah.
cool.
Man, that's so great. So did you being kind of in that kind of group of musicians and everything, like have you ever played with Derek?
Yeah, a couple times. I think
Okay.
I used to play with a band called the Lee Boys a lot. They're a Sacred Steel gospel group.
Oh, oh,
And Roosevelt Collier was in the band. He's gone on to like be a solo guy. He's playing with Jelly Roll now. He's like he's one of my good buddies from way back in the day. I used to play a festival near my hometown with them in the Spirit of the Swanee Music Park, Live Oak, Florida. That's where they had like Wani and Halloween and a bunch of other big
yeah.
festivals. One time we were playing one of the festivals there, and I think Oteil and Derek sat in, and this is maybe 2004. And just to give you a little context, I had tried to grow a ponytail, and I obtained an SG, and I was like full like trying to be Derek mode
Yeah.
at that time. And to have him, I think I was on one end of the stage, and there's like 15 people, and then he was way at the other end, and we did not interact musically at all. But for me, it was just like, that's Derek Trucks right there. That's my guy. I did meet him a bunch of times growing up. I would just go to see him play whenever I possibly could. Once I got a car, I would like drive all over the South to go hear him whenever I could in small clubs, you know, and he would a lot of times talk to me. Sometimes I would get to sit on the bus and like talk to Enrico and,
Mm.
just be around, and he just kind of let me be around. He was very generous the times that I got to meet him. And but yeah, I don't think we've gotten to play. I would love to play with him, but
I would love to hear that. That'd be
yeah.
awesome.
The last time I saw him in person was when we were playing with Jimmy at the Variety Playhouse in Atlanta in 2019. There was a moment after the show where I was in the basement, in the backstage or whatever with Jimmy, and then Derek walked in, and I'm like, I'm here with my two heroes, like right now. This is
Good
pretty
Lord,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, I know Gabe Dixon pretty well,
Yeah.
and he played on like my last record. And last time they were here, I shot like I call it gear gab. So by the way, if you ever come through, if you want me to like do a gear gab with you, talk
I see
about
your
gear,
two rocks back there. I like that. Yeah.
oh baby, man, I love that amp. But when Gabe, the first time I went backstage with Gabe and I met Derek, like he couldn't have been nicer. Like I had a shirt on of Ariel Posen, and Ariel Posen had like a 335. And he's like, look at that guitar, that thing's killer. And like it's like, oh, this guy just wants to talk about guitars. All right, so let's talk about guitars.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, it's like it didn't even feel like I was talking to one of my heroes. I felt like I was talking to like an old friend.
Yeah, totally. He's that way.
He's just a really nice dude. And like Susan too, man. Like
Susan's amazing. Yeah, she's
she
awesome.
was so friendly and so nice. And like, and I'm a nerd too. I bought years ago. I've sold them since, unfortunately, but I bought Derek's signature SG when I was learning how to play slide. I bought an Epiphone first to see if I'm like, is this gonna stick? Because I want a cheap guitar to mess around with. And then I bought that. And then I built it like a parts caster that was like Susan's color, like that metallic green color and everything. And I took a picture of it at one point, and I showed them too, that both those guitars right next to each other. And they're like, yes. And I was like, I sold them, unfortunately. And they're like, no. But yeah, it's just like, it's fun. It's like so nice to hear stories that you've kind of met your heroes, and like they say don't meet your heroes. It sounds like you can meet everybody, you know?
Yeah. I mean, we're blessed, you know, like in this kind of music that you and I are talking about. It's a lot of people who just love music, and it really is about that. And it's, you know, I think maybe we're struggling with the other side of it. So I'm not talking about myself, like the marketing and the putting yourself out there and the like. Yeah. I mean, there always is a visual element to music. There always has been, you know, in whatever form, whatever era, like that's always been a part of it. But that's the part I struggle with, is like, okay, I'm not being a student of music right now. I actually need to like tell people what I'm doing and put myself out there. So, but yeah, with that, I'm not obsessed with the image making part of it. And I think a lot of my heroes are not obsessed with that either. So
no, well, and I think organically, like just kind of like how I found you. I mean, it's, I mean, I'm going to tell everybody about you, Rick, because I think you're great. And I think you got a really cool thing happening, man. And I think it's something that, honestly, it's an injection that I think that this scene needs. I think we're missing some of that. I don't want to say like music prowess or like musicianship thing, but like, because there's plenty of players that are doing that, but like,
oh yeah, there's tons. Yeah.
But there's just something different about what you're doing that I resonated with. And, you know, I think it's going to happen organically for you, you know, I think in certain ways. But like, I'm next time you're anywhere near here, man, like if you come down to Philly or whatever, I'm going to make the trip, and I'm going to bring some friends, because
yeah, man,
people need to check out the shit you're doing, dude. It's really rad.
So, I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. The last thing I wanted to ask you, I read, I think on your bio, you played with Larkin Poe.
Yeah. Way back in the day. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if there's any recordings or mementos of that time still out there anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like 2011 to 2012, like those 2 years. I actually met those girls at a festival at Live Oak, and we had a mutual friend, and they were looking to hire a guitar player, and they hired me. And the other guitar player in that band before me was Mike Seal, who is one of my absolute favorite players. He's a monster, and he's married to Megan, one of the two sisters in that band. So yeah, I got to be in that band and travel around with them, and I learned an incredible amount about like how to be an artist and how to write songs and have a work ethic and just be at that level and put yourself out there. And they have worked their asses off for years and played everywhere. And when I was with them, a lot of the shows were empty, or we were playing very small places.
So
we would go
weird.
other places where they had a bigger following. Like they went to Europe a lot and had a big following in Europe already. But just to see them pound the pavement, they've done the work. They're incredibly talented, and they're winning Grammys now. So
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, it's been cool to watch them kind of do their thing, and they're definitely putting out a bunch of videos and social media stuff.
They've always been better at that than me, for sure. Yeah.
Well, dude, I mean, I think you're, just keep putting up those posts of you guys playing live, man. Is this like kind of the new trio in New York? Are you going to be doing a lot more gigs with Kevin and Josh, or?
I hope so. Kevin and we've had a trio with our friend Marlon Patton, who's an incredible drummer and multi-instrumentalist. He's one of just our oldest friends, basically. That band is called Fight Josh.
That's awesome.
Another inside joke. But that's been the trio. But Marlon was living in New York. He just moved back to Nashville. So we're going to get him back up here as much as we possibly can to play with him. But in the event we can't get him,
I'm going to settle for him.
I'll have to settle for Josh Dion, I suppose. No, it's like we've already been talking. Like, I haven't gotten to play with Josh that many times, but he's like, oh my God, he's insanely amazing and so fun to play with. And yeah, I certainly hope we get to do more with him. And Kevin and I, Kevin keeps letting me tag along with whatever he's got going on a lot of the time. So we'll always have different versions of stuff popping out. And yeah, it'll be exciting. But I'm really looking forward to getting my solo project out and putting myself out there, as an artist more, and trying to play this music live. And Kevin is going to be a part of that, obviously, and just my whole extended circle of dudes, whoever I can get at the time, whoever's available, because all these guys have their own very busy projects going on.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Warren Haynes taking up my buddy's schedule all the time. I can't call him for gigs anymore. Yeah.
That's so funny, man.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, dude, I can't wait to see you play live. It's on my list, man, for 2025. So
awesome. Come up to New York. Yeah. And I'll try to make it down there. Definitely would be great.
Yeah. I'll have to let you know, like, if there's spots, because there's some spots around town that probably would be good spots for you to like slide into.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'll think about it. I'll hit you up. All right, so let's do the lightning round get down.
All right, let's do it.
That's what we're gonna do, Rick. So we're cruising at a comfortable altitude of 112 BPM for some suspense here.
All right,
and I've got 10 questions for you. You can burn through them if you want. If you want to explain your answers, feel free. Happy to hear it. First one is always the same: Lennon or McCartney?
Lennon's vibe, McCartney's melodies and harmonies.
Okay.
Can I do that? Can I split the baby? That's not fair.
I'll take it because that is fair. That's a fair comment. So
yeah.
As far as a villain, Darth Vader or Sauron?
Sauron. Actually, Morgoth. I'm gonna go deep Lord of the Rings nerd. Yeah. I mean, Vader would win. Actually, I don't know. Sauron would probably defeat Vader, I think. You got the ring? Yeah. I think.
Yeah. How can you not?
Yeah, Sauron.
All right. Telly or 335?
Telly. Although I love both, and I have a 336 that I play all the time too. But Telly.
Okay. Is the 336 the blonde one that you had?
Mm-hmm.
I think sounds good, man.
Thanks.
It's got that throaty thing.
It does. Yeah. Ooh. It doesn't quite sound like a 335. It's more like mid-focused, pointy sounding, maybe. But
yeah. Sounds dope. Cold or hot subs?
Ooh. Hot sub, Publix chicken tender sub. That's the one that delicious. I miss that I can't get in New York. It's only down south. So.
Dude, that's like every time we go south, like once you get over that Virginia line, like there's more Sheets.
Yeah.
And we love Sheets.
Sheets is great, man. Yeah. 2 a.m, long drive, nothing better. Yeah.
MTO. Blues Breaker or Tube Screamer?
Ooh. I've been using a King of Tone for like 12 years, and that's based on the Blues Breaker. So probably that, but the Stevie Ray Vaughan Blues Prodigy in me says Tube Screamer, but probably Blues Breaker for my style. Yeah.
I'll take it. Yeah. Hug or handshake?
Dap, which is a combination of the two. I'll do that. I usually come in for, this is a jazz school thing. I get the handshake here, and then I'll come around for the hug. Yeah.
Yep. I know that one.
Yeah.
Krantz or Sko?
Oh, don't make me do that. Sko. I mean, Sko is huge for me.
Yeah. All right, you got to go to work, but you got to go on a unicycle or a pogo stick.
Pogo.
Okay. Princeton or deluxe reverb.
Princeton.
And then here's the last one. If you could take one record and erase it from your memory, just so you could go back and experience it for the first time again, what
Okay.
album would that be?
Inspiration Information by Shuggie Otis.
Okay, tell me why. I don't think I've ever heard that record. Tell me why.
Put it on your list, man. That's the first one that popped in my head. It's often one of my like go-to albums to put on. Shuggie was Prince like 10 years before Prince was Prince. He like was
Ooh.
incredibly innovative, soul, funk, blues dude, guitar player, singer, multi-instrumentalist. He was like a young child prodigy in LA, like in the late 60s. His dad was a famous Hollywood band leader and tried to get his son film scoring lessons when he was like 12 years old. And the dude was like, he already knows everything. He knows how to write for an orchestra and he's 12 years old.
That's
But
nuts.
he makes this record in 72 or 3, Inspiration Information. And it's soul, funk. It's got string arrangements that he wrote. It's got synthesizers. It's got some of the first drum machines that were recorded on a record. It's got beautiful harmonies, unexpected textures, and he played it all himself. I think he literally played every instrument, and yeah, he was just doing it. Like he crushed it. He knocked it out of the park with that one. And then he kind of like dropped off the map. He like started to get successful, and then like the song of his that's the most famous is Strawberry Letter 23. The Brothers Johnson recorded it. And that was, I think that might have been on the previous record, Shuggie record, but he just like couldn't deal with stardom and just kind of disappeared for a long time. But it's still a desert island record for me. Inspiration Information.
Okay. See, I feel that way. I feel the same way about Sneaking Sally Through the Alley.
Oh yeah.
That's like the same. I feel the same connection to that. For some reason, it's just like this thing that's like, I love how the album sounds, and it's, you know what I mean? It's like there's certain records like that. That's why I love that question, because I've heard so many different answers on the show.
Yeah.
And probably the majority of them are Dark Side. Surprisingly, like there's people that have come on the show that I never in a million years would have thought they would have said a Pink Floyd record. And you're like, Dark Side of the Moon, man. I'm like, really? Okay.
Nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
No, there ain't nothing wrong with that. So Rick, tell me and tell the people, what do you got going on? What's coming up? What's going on in 2025? What should we be looking out for?
So 2025, hopefully my record will be coming out. Hopefully, probably the second half of the year, if I had to guess. But I'll be dropping some stuff along the way. I'm playing some of this new music for the first time ever at Pete's Candy Store on the 16th of this month, December 16th.
Oh, cool.
If anybody's in the New York area, come see me. It's a solo show. And I'm going to try to play some of these new songs that nobody's ever heard. So that'll be great. And then probably continue to play at the bitter end, you know, with whatever groups we assemble. Probably be some version of me and Kevin Scott. And I'll be continuing to tour with Jameson Ross, which I didn't really talk about him a lot in this interview, but he's one of my just closest friends and biggest inspirations. Amazing drummer and singer and songwriter and producer. So I'll be on the road with him, and yeah, just be working away, trying to survive in the music industry, like so many of us out here. Yeah,
absolutely. I saw that clip you put up from Jazz Fest, so everybody should go.
Yeah.
So I'm putting up links right now on the page. BV is my moderator. Thank you for moderating, BV. And if you go to Rick's Instagram, so it's at Rick Lollar Music.
No, it's at Rick Lollar, actually.
Oh, at Rick Lollar. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you go to that, you'll be able to see the most recent. Did you put that in your stories, or was that on your post? I think it was on a post.
I think they asked me to like be a, you know, like when you do the
contributor
contributor thing. So it's on my feed. But Instagram is definitely the place I'm the best at updating. And I often forget. I'm horrible about telling people what I'm doing, but just follow me on Instagram. That's the number one way to keep track of what I'm doing.
And ricklollar.com for
ricklollar.com,
just updates general on tour and all that stuff.
All that, yeah.
But yeah, that performance of that song, Call Me, that was cool because I saw, did he throw an audible and was like, I'm gonna do another verse, and you guys were all like, okay, and everybody
probably yeah,
Swatty, everybody like turned and like looked like, okay, I'm like, pay attention to what's going on right now.
Yeah, if that happens sometimes. Yeah.
It's like that. Are you a Bruce Hornsby fan?
I'm not a deep one. I don't know a ton of his repertoire, but yeah, he's Amazing. Yeah.
Dude, okay, so this album gets shit on a little bit, but,
Mhm.
like, I'm telling you, there's a record called Big Swing Face.
Okay.
It's probably his least popular record because there was some programmed drums on it, like,
Mm.
with Sonny Emery playing.
Oh, right on.
So it's a little bit different than people are used to hearing, but check that record out. There's a song called, Place Under the Sun that is the dirtiest thing in 7/4 you might ever hear. Like, it's gnarly.
All right.
It's a really good record, but there's a whole documentary when they played the Blue Note.
Mhm.
I think that was like 2008, 2007, something like that. But there's a whole thing where JT Thomas is talking about, like, you got to watch Bruce like a hawk because this is a cue. Just him looking up is a cue.
Yeah.
And you're
Yep.
like, what does that mean?
Yep.
Like, so it's like that moment that I saw you guys like, all right, band leader. It's like maturity of band supporting the music kind of thing. But
Yep.
that song was super fun. Like, anytime I hear something that has that gospel vibe with like that,
Mhm.
plagal cadence type thing.
That's when I got to write with Jameson. That was he and I writing that. And
Oof, it's a good song, man.
yeah, his second record, All for One, it's got like 4 or 5 songs that he and I co-wrote that we still play live a bunch. And yeah,
Hell yeah.
he's an incredible artist. Y'all go check him out too.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Rick, dude, thank you so much, for doing this and spending some time with some noob fan.
Thanks for having me, Mark. This has been a lot of fun. Appreciate you. For real.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. BV, thank you again. Everybody else, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and we'll see you next time.